Hey, I'm Kirk of Effectatron, and they've just released the new Cinema 4D 2023. So now they're going to do kind of annual stuff, even though the CEO of Maxon said it's not going to be annual. And then Redshift also is not going to be annual. So just naming it different for fun. Let's just go ahead and take a look. There's a lot of new features, but today we're just going to focus on the new Redshift feature, which is material stacking, which a lot of people are interested in. To me, it's kind of underwhelming. It kind of seems like a feature that should have been there all along, and it's not quite as powerful as I wish it was. But first, let's just go ahead and start off. And when we open this up, we see our little scene here, and this little guy looks real familiar to me. Anywho, let's go ahead and get started. We'll just do a new scene. Be sure to get, since it's a new system, you got to reset up everything to save your default scene. So we're already in Redshift Workspace and all that stuff. So I've already got that all set up. So go ahead and watch my videos on doing that and stuff like that. But let's go ahead and talk about what I think is the best new Redshift feature, which is kind of a low-key feature that they kind of tried to sneak under the radar. And that is the fact that now when you go over to this camera button, you can click and hold, and you actually have access to Redshift cameras. They come in with camera tags. Why these aren't the default ones and you still have to click and drag them and go down rather than just clicking it and creating this, I don't know. That's what I want next. Like, let me just click a button. Well, now I can. So once I've selected, I can, which is good at least. So maybe you can save that. But let's go ahead. So it comes in with the actual tag. So fantastic. That was kind of a low-key one. I think they tried to sneak it in because it really should have been there all along. So let's go ahead and take a look at material stacking. Super easy to use. It's not quite as robust and powerful as you think it's going to be. Really all it is a way to not have to use the material blender when dealing with an alpha channel for mixing multiple materials. So what do I mean? Well, basically, let's create two materials real quick. So we'll have a Redshift material, standard, and we'll just go ahead and hold Control, copy, and make another one of that. So what we can do is we can throw that first material on our cube, a lame gray default material, and we'll open up our other material. We'll go ahead and make that white. And all we need to do is bring in a texture. So we could either click and drag or a texture with an alpha map, or you can actually use noise and stuff like that, which I'll show you in a second. But let's just go ahead and grab my texture from the desktop real quick of just the Maxon logo with an alpha. So we'll go ahead and bring that in. PNG, Maxon alpha. So let's go ahead and we'll plug that into the color. And then we'll also hit C and we'll use split, color splitter. And what we can do with this is basically you can separate out the alpha channel if you want. You also could use a ramp and do the black and white, whatever you want. It really depends on how your thing's built out. So you plug this into the input, and then you grab your A and grab that, plug that into the geometry opacity. So we'll see this should update, maybe not. Yeah, there we go. And so now you can see it's a cutout. So we have the color from our information from our logo, and we have the alpha channel. So used to be, if you wanted to have that sticker on here, you would have to open up, the material that you wanted, and then you'd add in a material blender, and you'd take that material and you'd have the texture and another material, and then you'd plug those two things in, and then plug that in, and you basically blend the two together through that. Now you don't have to do all that. All you need to do is grab this material and throw it in on top of your cube. And instantly, that's material stacking. So if we look at the render view of this, we'll add a quick dome light or a sky real quick, just so we have some lighting in here. Hit play. And you can see we have our sticker alpha channel over top of our original material. If you come in here to our original material and make some changes, like change the color or whatever, you have complete control to do those two things separately. So pretty cool that you can now, create one material, have it very, very focused, and do the other one. You can do that up to 6 times, I think. I think there's 6 stacks, so you can do it, but that's pretty much it. You still kind of have to do some finagling around to get the sticker where you want it, but it is a little bit easier to do now in a way that's kind of, let's go ahead and just take a look at saying we just want this sticker in the top left corner of this box, and we don't want it looping around the sides, and we don't want it, just all in the middle. So best practice, firstly, when you're doing a texture, you want to make sure that the texture image that you have is square, because regardless of whatever the heck your image looks like or anything, when Redshift brings it in or whatever, it's going to instantly put that in a 1-to-1 ratio that you just have to change by coming in here and changing the length and stuff here in these weird percentages, and it's really hard to get it super accurate. So if you're doing something like a logo or something, and you really, like for a company, you probably need to get their logo exactly right, or else they're going to be mad. So make sure that when you create your logo with the alpha channel, that it is a perfect square. And then your logo will come in the correct scale, and you won't have to mess with this stuff. So best practice for that, definitely do that. Secondly, another great way that this actually is a really good speed up for the workflow is if you have like a PBR material or something from Substance or something like that, where you've created these different material layers, and you have an alpha layer for a complex shape. Like let's say we had something for like a mech or something like that did have an alpha channel. As long as that's UV mapped to the UV map for your object, when you drag and drop that in, it's going to go right where it needs to go. So that's huge. That's awesome. You don't have to do any finagling and move that around. So if you have something that you know you're going to put logos or decals or something on, you still are going to want to draw that in Photoshop or something in the UV map first for the easiest results. But it's not ideal. So let's go ahead and just take a look at putting this where we want it to go. So we'll grab our square up here, our little material tag, and we're going to change it from UV mapping. We're going to turn off tiling, definitely turn that off, and we're going to go ahead and change it to flat. So now we only have it on one side. So now the cool thing is we can come in here and grab this little icon here. This is going to change it to the texture, use the texture mode, and that draws this little box for us. And basically this box is a representation of our texture altogether. So you can see it's a perfect square, and that's not because of the shape of the object. It's always a square. So when we want to adjust it, because this logo actually isn't this big, we can start squishing and stuff, and you can start seeing it actually shows up on our object, but we can start squishing this down. So let's say I think it's about 77% is a little more accurate of reality, maybe even less, probably like 55, I believe would be the right aspect ratio. So like 1.9. Yeah. So that looks like actually the right size. So now we've scaled that in. So we've actually adjusted our logo. Again, we didn't have to do this if we made it the right actual texture size. The actual image itself was a square. Okay, so we've brought it in because it wasn't a square. It was like 16 by 9 or something weird like that. Probably less than that actually. Anyway, so we've done that adjustment now. So now we just want to move it around. So pretty easy now that we have this texture mode and we have the preview in our viewport. Makes it a lot easier. We can just move it around like a normal thing. We can put it up here in the corner. You want to put it on top, you're going to have to rotate it and do that. But we can put it down here in the lower left corner. It just makes it a little easier to control. But what I wish that we could do is auto orient this. So like if this shape was actually a sphere, instead of a cube, let's throw these things on a sphere. Right, we're going to get it, but it's kind of wrapping, but it's going to do this weird stretching and stuff because of the way it works. Obviously we're putting a flat shape across the sphere, so it's going to like spray paint it. But if we look at it from the front, the logo is going to look correct because we have that square looking like that. So what I really wish that this tool could do is auto orient the UV texture map, this texture editing mode. I want to target that to a null or something so that when I rotate around an object, it's going to rotate with it. Like, let me do that. I feel like Blender, you can snap stuff to a surface, move it around. I feel like that's where material stacking needs to go next. It's a great step that we've added in. It feels like something that really should have been in the last few years, but hopefully it's a little better for sure. So just some tips. There are other ways that you can do the projection display on here so that you can see things a little easier. Because right now we have set to simple, and you can see we still have this white square, but we've rescaled it. But it's kind of hard to tell. But this red line has lifted up, so it's kind of tricky to see where you're dealing with exactly. So you can change it to grid, and that's going to draw a grid with where your texture actually is in that UV space, which is helpful. And you can also do solid, which is going to give you those little cells so you can see how they're stretched and stuff like that. So that kind of thing is possible as well. So if you're looking at this, and you're like, oh man, it's doing the front and the back. It's not, even though we've set our side to front, so it's not going to do the front and the back. It's only going to do the front. It shows up in the viewport, but when we go to render time, it won't be on the back. It's kind of an annoying thing. Just take it off the viewport. Don't confuse me. But yeah, it's not there on the back. it is on the front. So come around here, change it to both. It's going to show up on the back. Kind of neat. You still need kind of an understanding of UV mapping, projection types, cubic, frontal, spatial, UV mapping, shrink map, camera mapping. So it's not like the best for stickers, you know. I mean, it's cool, but you're still going to have to, like, it's interesting. Not to bash on Redshift or anything, but they demoed it on a cardboard box. And it's like the easiest thing to put a logo on is a box. Like, show me like a detailed gun or something, or a weapon where I can put something, a decal across it, you know, where it fits perfectly and wraps perfectly. You're still just going to have to do that stuff in Photoshop or Illustrator, wherever you're creating your UV map image. Kind of a bummer, but pretty neat tool. Definitely makes it easier. You don't have to go into the material blender and all this stuff. So that I like. And you still, you know, if we wanted to add another layer of this, where we can control this one completely separate of how we want to do the others. So we can rotate it and put it on the top or something like that, scale it down and tile it across the top if we wanted to, or whatever. You still could do that. So pretty cool now that you can control. It's definitely easier. I'll say that. It's 100% easier for sure to put things and decals where you want it. So pretty neat. That's how you use it. You can do up to 6 times, I think, is what it is. So I guess this would be 2 times. I don't know if this counts as 3 or just 2. So I haven't pushed it to the limit yet. But there you go. It's just a lot easier to do it. You can swap out materials. Just that way you can focus on building material. You can create some stuff. Let's go ahead and just show how to use like a material noise really quick, and creating that and using bump map and stuff to kind of mix materials a little easier than we used to. So let's create like a rusty iron or something like that. Yeah. Okay. Browser, and we've made it just a simple object, so it's going to apply the material across the whole thing. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to go to create Redshift material, center material. We're just going to go ahead and change that metalness all the way up to 1, and then we're going to open that up. We're going to make it a little lighter. We'll go like almost white. Double click that, and we're going to open up our asset browser. And we're going to type in imperfections when we're in the all setting here. And that's going to bring up this list of imperfections for us. So we're going to go ahead and grab this like finger smudge, bring that in. We're going to use that to drive the roughness map. Click and drag that into roughness. And then we're going to get a scratchy one. Here we go. This one's got a lot of scratches. Grab that, pull that in, hit C, type in bump, bring in that bump map, and drag this into there. Texture input, and drive this bump into there. And for the bump map, we want to make this negative. So let's go ahead and click that bump map. And we want to go ahead and set this to like -0.2. And that's going to make our scratches go inside, like cut in rather than stick out. So you got to make sure you have a negative value for that to make the white values go into your object and not pop out. So we've got a nice brush metal here. We'll take a look at this real quick in the render view so you can see it. Once you put it on your object, that helps. There we go. So we got this scratchy metal that's just like way too big and intense because I screwed up the UV maps and stuff. But all you gotta do, click and drag both of these, go in here to the scale. And even though we want it to be smaller, we're gonna increase the scale because basically we're telling it how many times we want it to tile. So we're gonna say like 4. And that's gonna make all those patterns tile smaller. So it won't be so intense. Refresh. There we go. Now it looks a little better. Okay, so we have this nice reflective kind of scratch metal look going on. So what we want to do is we want to add a rust on top of this and use a noise map to drive it. So what we can do is create a new rust metal material, Redshift material standard. Double click that. What we can do is we can type in noise. And if you've done my material masterclass or my material metals course on Skillshare, you might recognize creating this noise or this rust. We're going to go here to the noise. We're going to say sort of a deep dark red and then sort of a orangish, kind of just a nasty color, you know. There we go. Maybe make that a little darker. Yep. And we can change the noise type to like probably Naki or Luca. Maybe FPM. Yeah, FPM is probably a good one. Okay, then we're going to copy and paste that. And basically, we're just going to change the C's of that and go back to black and white. And we'll probably need to go into the input and make the scale like really small. And we're going to use this one to drive the bump map. So again, with the bump, bring that in. You can see we just have like kind of really tiny shapes. If you ever need to see this on your shape, you can throw that material on your object and you hit the S on your icon, and that's going to show how that's being applied to your object. And you can see our UV maps are screwed up because I condensed it all, but that's going to be fine for this because we can fix that. Okay, so we've got that going on, and basically we're just going to plug that into the bump texture input, bump map. And this time we don't want it to sink in. We do want it to be rough, but we definitely want this to be way smaller because our rust is going to be, you know, really small. So we'll do like 0.01. Yeah, that's probably good. I don't like to rely completely on the viewport for this, but we'll take a look at what it actually looks like, and we'll lower it down because it doesn't need to be that intense. So again, 0.2 for the scale. And we'll just take a look at this real quick. And right now it's going to be just over top, like just because we threw it on there, we're not going to see that at all. So we'll put the color in here. And there we go. And then for our roughness, we definitely want our roughness of our rust to be really rough because rust is rough. Rust is rough. So we'll double click that, go into our roughness value, and we'll crank that up to like 0.8. So let's do just a little tiny render view. And we'll do a bucket render on this real quick. Yeah. So you can see that's like a nice little rust material. And again, you can kind of see it's a little annoying, but the viewport is kind of, again, different than the actual render. Redshift and the viewport don't always get along when it comes to textures and stuff. So it's always useful to use the IPR, which is kind of the whole thing with Redshift anyway. So it doesn't really matter, but just remember that when going in, this is going to be your best friend rather than that. So here we go. We've got this nice rusty looking material here. And what we can do is we can just go into our material here with the rust, and we're going to create a noise again. Excuse me. So we're going to create a noise. And what we'll do is we'll just come in here, and we want to make sure that this is pure black and pure white. So we want to go down to the output, and we change the low clip to 0.5 and the high clip to 0.5. And that way it's going to be only black or only white. So there's not going to be any like grays or anything. Because, you know, you don't really have like partially rust on stuff. You know, rust, if it was something else that you wanted to be like kind of growing on, you could definitely use some gray values there, but rust is either there or it's not. So let's just change this to Luca, maybe. Yeah. Luca, we'll put some more octaves in there. Maybe something else, maybe FBM. Yeah, FBM, pretty cool. We could change the scale to be a little bigger, like maybe 3. Yeah, 3, cool. So what we have right now is just nothing going on. But if we take this and we drive our opacity map with this, now you see, because we have that silver layer in underneath it already and already on our object, we're getting that blend between those two. So pretty cool way to just add rust and stuff on there when you can just focus on building one material at a time, and your node editors are obviously going to be a lot more organized because there's not a bunch of stuff here plugging into a material blender and a bunch of stuff down here. You don't have two materials in one node editor funneling into the shape. You just can focus on one at a time and drag and drop it in. And so the cool thing is now if we create another material or have something else and we want to throw rust on it, we can, which is really neat. So now we've built a rust that we can just throw on something and it's gonna work on there, which is pretty cool. And the cool thing about this is, you know, we could come in here and we could animate it if we wanted to. So what we're going to do is we're going to keyframe our low key and our low clip and our high clip. And basically we're going to set them both to 1 at the beginning. And then we're going to go to the end and set them to 0.5 and 0.5 where we get that perfect mix state of where we want our end value to be. You could lower it all the way down so that it, like, the rust envelops it completely. Basically, we're just going to animate that rust growing on. And we've come in here to our material view here, and we've got our high clip and our low clip, and we've kind of put just a curve on it because really, you really don't start seeing the effect of it until it's pretty low. So we've brought that down. But basically what's going to happen is frame 0 is going to be perfectly shiny. And then as we go forward into our object, we're going to see that rust start to grow on. So you see it's a little bit, then we're going to get more and more. And we need to tweak the keyframing here, but you can just see it just starts to grow on. So it's a pretty cool little effect where you could definitely do some time lapses of weathering and stuff like that. So just a kind of a neat way and a lot easier to control and stuff. And so the cool thing, again, with material stacking is now that we have this built, we could say, well, you know what? I actually just want this this ball to be white underneath, and we don't have to like change anything, or we want to put it on a different object altogether, and you can just throw on another object on there and grow that on there. So we can put our metal back on our shader ball here, and we could bring in something like a torus. Shrink that down, bring it up, and we could have this torus. We're gonna want this torus to be white, but we want it to have this rust, so we can just go ahead and drag that rust over top of our torus. Instantly gonna apply it. We can tweak the way that's UV mapped around that as well if we wanted to. And there we go. Now we have just the ability to quickly add pre-built things and stuff onto each other, and that's going to animate as well. So just material stacking definitely makes it a lot easier to, just focus on creating one thing at a time and then apply it to different things rather than having to, used to have to mix everything, plug everything into a material blender, and then it was really hard to copy and paste that. You had to like select all the nodes, plug it in. You still had to do a bunch of plugging in and stuff, and now you don't have to. So pretty cool. Neat, definitely useful, very cool, great step forward. What I want to see next is like being able to orient that to a surface so I can have a logo. And regardless of the shape of the logo, I want to be able to just slide it around and have it stick to that surface, because I know that technology exists and I want to see that in Redshift. So pretty cool. I mean, obviously, once you've created your materials, obviously save this scratchy metal. Go ahead and just throw them in your asset browser so you have them. So now I've created a growing rust and a scratchy metal, and now whenever I open up my projects or whatever and I want that metal that I've created, go ahead and throw that in there. Best practice, if you make a cool looking material, throw it in the asset browser. It's pretty cool. They also added watch folders and stuff, so when you bring in textures, do all that, but we'll cover that later. All right. If you found this helpful, it means a lot if you'd like and subscribe. Possibly if you want to support me and the channel and you want more tutorials and eventually more members-only tutorials, think about hitting that join button down there. It helps support me and the channel. It means a lot. And be sure to check out the links below to all my training, DerekKirk.net. Just the Ultimate Redshift Masterclass is out. It's got a bunch of 3.5 stuff. We cover everything from how to optimize your scene, light everything, render times, everything. So all the materials, nodes, it's a lot. It's like 10 plus hours of content. So definitely check that out. If you are looking to up your Redshift game. But definitely hop over to the Discord, click that link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. There'll be more. There's a lot more new features like this little butterfly up here. So be sure to subscribe to be notified and ring that bell. So when my new tutorials come out, you'll see them. All right, y'all. See y'all next time. Later.